Hello, I'm Ocean Clark, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to photograph your artwork. This is one of the questions that I get asked the most. How do I make prints of my work? How do I take a painting and turn it into a digital file so I can make a print of it? The obvious answer is take a photo of it, but that's a lot easier said than done for some people. I happen to have a bachelor's degree in photography, so it's pretty easy for me, and I'm going to show you 3 really easy ways to do it. The first one I never do. It's expensive. It's about $30 per image, give or take, and it's a flatbed scan. This is the best way to do it if you want the best quality image, but it's expensive, like I said, and I do a lot of paintings. I paint thousands of paintings a year sometimes. Last year was about 1,500. So if I did that on every single one, it would get ridiculous. If you only paint 1 or 2 paintings a month and you're doing like hyper realism, this would be the best way to do it. Take it to somebody that has a flatbed scanner and get a really high res scan done. But if you paint a lot, like I do, or if you're on a budget, the easiest thing to do is take a photograph. And you don't have to have professional equipment. It helps, but you don't have to have it. I'm going to show you one way to take a really nice photo without any professional equipment other than a decent camera, but today's camera phones are good enough you can get by. And then I'm going to show you a way with a little bit of equipment, and you can alter this and get more professional equipment if you can afford it, but I'm going to give you options here. So the first way is using natural sunlight, and most people would immediately think, oh, take it out into, this is one of my originals, take it out into the bright sun and I can get a picture. But the problem with that is you get glare like this, and you also pick up all the little textures on the surface of the painting. All these ridges show through if you're using direct sunlight. So I have one light, the overhead light's on, let me switch that out. So I have one light on beside me. This is acting as the sun. And what happens, like it's impossible to get a straight on shot without glare, without picking up that energy. But if I take my painting to the shadow side of my house or any other structure, so you put a shadow, pretend this board here is my house, and I go to the back of the house and lean the painting up in that shadow, so there's not direct sunlight, but this overcast sunlight, then the painting is evenly lit. It's a little hard to see in the video. It's perfectly evenly lit. You don't get any of the texture from the surface. It looks dark in the photo, but that's easily fixed in Photoshop, and I'll show you how in a minute. So you just prop the painting against the wall on the shadow side of your house, and you always want to have your camera on a tripod, because if it's moving, then that blur is going to show up as loss of detail. So tripod it, or even putting it on a chair or a table or something so that your camera is stable. I like to set a 10-second timer on my camera and use a remote to trigger it, because even the little vibration of pushing the trigger on your camera is enough that your photo won't be completely crisp. And to get a really crisp print, you need a really crisp photo. So set your timer, set your camera up, crop it in tight so the painting is almost filling your frame, instead of way back far, because you're going to have a bigger photo that way. And then take that photo just on the shadow side of your house. I hope that was understandable. I'll draw a little picture out if it wasn't. But that's the easy way, and that's cheap. You don't need any lights. All you need is a camera. It can be whatever camera you have on hand. I have an iPhone 6s Plus, and I've done prints off of pictures on that camera that rivaled the pictures from my expensive professional SLR. So I mean, you can get away with it. It's better to use a more professional camera if you have it, but if you don't, still take a good picture. Take as good a picture as you can get, and even if you're not making prints, take one of every single painting you ever do, because you never know when you're going to want to make prints of that painting. So that was the easy way, and the next way is a little bit harder, but I'll show you my complete setup, and it's still relatively easy. So I'm gonna pick my phone up here for just a second and show you. This is my painting studio, and I have 2 lights set up on each side of the room, and they're both wired into one breaker switch, just a power strip. So when I pop that on, it pops both of those lights on. So those are my light sources, and on the other side of the room, my camera is set up always in the same place. I just flip it on, I push the remote, it starts the 10 seconds, I step out of the way, and when those lights are on, they light up my photo wall. So I can prop a painting on this wall and it's perfectly lit. Takes 1 second. Basically flip the lights on, flip the camera on, push the trigger button, and whatever painting I just finished is photographed. So that's the short version of it. Now I'm going to show you on this drawing exactly how those lights are set up. So basically you have your painting, and you don't have to have it set up. I've got this 8-foot by 8-foot easel that makes it really easy here, but you don't have to. Let me grab a darker pin. That one's not showing up. So you can just prop it against the wall. You can prop it on an easel, however is convenient for you, whatever makes your life easy. So you set your painting up on the wall, and then that's the wall. And then you set your lights up at equal distances and equal angles from the art. So the good starting place would be like a 45-degree angle from the art. But if your art has a lot of glare, you can eliminate that glare by moving the lights a little closer to the wall. So for like oil paintings, sometimes you need to be a little closer to the wall. The main thing is this distance has to equal this distance, and the lights need to be the same intensity, the same brightness. These are 1,000-watt bulbs, and these light fixtures, they're Lowell Total lights. They're about $100 each, brand new. Really cheap way to get a 2,000-watt bright room, and with 2,000 watts I can take an amazing photo of these things. They're hot, and there's some obnoxious things about these lights, but they're so bright and so cheap that they're a great way to go. You can do the same exact thing with 2 floor lamps or table lamps. Shut out all other light in the room, because basically what's happening here when, let me flip them on, when I turn that light on, that light is casting, I actually have 2 lights over there, but that light is casting a shadow on this side of the texture, and this light is casting a shadow on this side of the texture. So when I eliminate that third light and get it to where it's just those 2 equal distance lights, as you can see, those shadows kind of eliminate each other. So say this is texture on the painting here, the shadow on each side, you can't really see it. So that same painting that I had before that has all sorts of texture, you can barely see the texture on your photo, and it's a little visible, but it's not that bad. This one was one of the highest texture paintings I had. That's why I chose it. I mean, when you look close, there's some big chunks of paint on this one. A little hard to see on my camera phone, but in any case, when you light it with those lights at perfect distances and equal angles to the artwork, then you get a perfect shot. Now your camera would obviously be dead center and opposite wall. So, and you want your angle, if you're using an SLR, you want your lens to be 50 millimeters or higher, because when you go under 50, like 40, 35 millimeters, then you actually warp the image. Your image won't be square, it'll be skewed a little. So 50 or higher, 50 or 100 or 75 or whatever your lens is much better. So I just use a fixed 50 millimeter lens usually, and it's perfect from that distance. And that's it. It's that simple. Just 2 lights. You can buy clamp lights from Home Depot, $5 lights. They don't have to be super bright. The brighter they are, the more light you're going to get into your lens, which means the higher quality the photo. But if you're tripod mounted and you set the timer, you can actually, it might be a 30-second exposure if you had very little light, but it'll get a really nice shot still. Obviously, if you can get a quicker exposure, it's going to be a much higher chance of it being perfect and crisp. but you can still do it with cheap lights. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So that's that simple way. I've got the same setup in my other painting room with really expensive lights. I spent a few grand on them, and they're not any better. They're just not as hot, and there's some some things that make them better. They're more portable and lighter, and they don't pop fuses in my house, but they're thousands of dollars more. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can get away with these. And these ones will literally pop the fuse in a few minutes because it's pulling 2,000 watts of power, so I can't leave them on very long. But they work really well for that quick slide work. And I mean, I've always got them set up in the same place on this wall, so when I finish a painting, I can take a picture of it within minutes of finishing the painting and not have to think about it. If I had to set up my lights every single time I finished a painting, I just honestly wouldn't even take pictures of half of them because I wouldn't feel like it, So having your lights set up in the same spot in the room, so you can just, I leave that camera set right there all the time too. I hardly ever move it. It's just a real simple, nice way to do it. You can flip the lights on, flip the camera on, take a picture, and be done with it for the day.